love, you're listening to the Died on Ashanta podcast. I'm a resilience strategist and migrant integration specialist who has spent the last 20 years traveling, working, and studying throughout the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. As a globetrotter, I quickly learned how to bounce back from crisis and how to thrive in new and strange places. I've used my training and experience to develop a resilience-based framework, and now I help others to get over the hurdles that come with living in a foreign country. Now on this podcast, I invite you to join me on this journey of living with simplicity, joy, and resiliency. From green smoothies to goal setting, we'll cover it all. We'll talk about all the things that help us to thrive through the storm. This is the Died on Ashanta podcast, and welcome to episode 39. Today we are talking about prioritizing purpose. And of course, this is focusing on cultivating spiritual resilience so that you can thrive through the storms that life will bring. And when you think about purpose, I know that for many people, immediately when someone says, live out your purpose or find your purpose, they begin to ask the same question. How do you find your purpose? How are you sure that you're living on purpose? Well, today we're going to explore some of that. But the first thing we need to establish is that everything that exists has a purpose. Every person that exists has a purpose. So whether you have identified what your purpose is or not, I guarantee you serve a purpose. Now, there are some people who they may be fully aware of what their purpose is, but maybe they are still searching for something else. They haven't embraced or accepted what their purpose is, or they think maybe someone else's life looks better than what theirs is, that sort of thing. So I'm not sure which category you feel that you fit in, but definitely you have a purpose. But just in case you are wondering, how do I find my purpose? I will pause quickly just to speak to that a little bit before we focus on the prioritizing of purpose and how that fits into cultivating and replenishing your spiritual resilience. Well, finding your purpose definitely requires two things. It requires self-awareness, knowing who you are and spending time getting to know yourself. What do I like? What do I dislike? What are my deal breakers? What are my limitations? What are my preferences? We spoke about this in a previous episode. So it requires you spending the time to get to know who you are, what your talents are, what your skills are, what are the things that are innate to you, what are the things that when you work on it, you become a master at it almost effortlessly. And then the second aspect it requires, of course, is consciousness of the world around you. Because if I'll use the example of Usain Bolt, where he was very much into football, and not until a coach encouraged him to try out and give some attention to track and field, sprinting, did he discover his purpose in that area. And so a lot of people might think, okay, I know myself, I do this well, or I do that well, or I don't like this, I don't like that, I'm passionate about this or the other thing. But not until they have been exposed to something new, something different, do they realize that there is something bigger for them. So this is another way of saying to you, don't just live in a box. Don't just stick to what you already know. Be open and willing to try something new, and you may unlock a new level in your self-awareness and in your consciousness of the world around you. Now that we have figured out how to find your purpose, then obviously we're going to go straight in onto focusing on one thing at a time. Now, when Usain decided that he was going to go into track and field, he couldn't say, okay, Monday is football practice, Tuesday is track and field, Wednesday is football, and going back and forth. He had to pick one thing and focus all his energy, all his resources on that one thing. And then when later on, when he decided to retire from his career in track and field, then he could explore something completely different. And this is the approach one has to take when prioritizing their purpose. You have to focus on one thing at a time. You cannot allow disappointments to throw you off course. So let's say someone told me they were going to take a particular exam to be certified or qualified to practice in a particular industry. And let us say you go off to do some kind of qualification or competency evaluation, and your score doesn't come out to what you want and you're disappointed. And then you just say, you know what, that's it, I'm not going to try this again, and you give up. You can't allow that to take you away from prioritizing your purpose. If you are convinced that this is something you should do, whether you find alternative routes to getting to your ultimate goal or pursuing the path you want, or you're going to keep trying, don't give up. Another thing that will pop up is difficulties. So maybe you have a goal of, let's say you want to build a home, and you find out that there's a particular, material that you need to use that is totally out of stock. You've checked every hardware and they don't have it. Are you going to say, okay, well, clearly this is not destined to be because there are so many roadblocks in the way, so clearly I should put my attention? No, don't look at difficulties as an indication that something is not meant for you. Sometimes you need to cultivate a new muscle, maybe being creative, maybe being innovative, maybe being persistent. There might be a virtue that needs to be worked on while you're experiencing difficulties. Or maybe you need to cultivate the willingness to build strong connections, reach out to your community, lean on others, and allow other people to invest in you and to show you other ways to get around your difficulties. Another thing that will come up that will help you to, go off course and not prioritize your purpose and ultimately bring a lot of stress and strife into your life is when you have destructive habits. Sometimes you have, let's say, a goal to complete a particular course of study, but you have a destructive habit of, say, scrolling through social media or staying up really late watching TV, or maybe it is not working out or eating properly. Whatever it is, you have a habit that is totally canceling out every effort that you would make. Every step you move forward, these destructive habits are just dragging you down, pulling you back, and not allowing you to be your best. Sometimes we are our own source of stress. So if it is you realize that you have destructive habits that's preventing you from prioritizing your purpose, from living on purpose, then you need to eliminate that. Cut it out, because this is a source of stress that's not allowing you to thrive through the natural and inevitable storms that life will bring to you. And then finally, there are some kind of distractions, which I would think, those shiny objects that come along and, oh, you're trying this. Let's say you want to I'll use an example I'm familiar with. You want to make lip balms, and then someone else says, why don't you make hard candies? And you're like, oh yeah, that looks like a good idea, and you start doing hard candies. And then someone else says, you know what I think is really cool, let's make cupcakes. And you're like, yeah, cupcakes. And when you check, you have a trail of incomplete projects, of start and stops, so many things that you have attempted without giving the full attention and effort to it. And so you never make progress because you're always starting something new, always going after the next distraction, the next shiny object. These are things that prevent you from prioritizing your purpose. So I want to encourage you to, once you have acknowledged and accepted that everyone has a purpose, and you have taken the time to find your purpose, to seek your purpose, that you will focus on one thing at a time so you can prioritize your purpose and live a life that is fulfilling. And a proverb that will probably help to kind of illuminate this point is from it. This proverb is a Haitian proverb, and it says, "A dog has 4 feet, but he doesn't walk 4 different paths at the same time." A dog has 4 feet, but he doesn't walk 4 different paths at the same time. So I hope you will choose one path to walk with your 2 feet. And if you'd like to explore some reading material that helps you to prioritize your life, your purpose, and to focus on one thing, I highly, highly recommend one of my top 3 books of all time is The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Check it out and see if you can focus in on your one thing. This is the Diana Shanta. Thanks so much for listening, love. If you enjoyed this episode, head over to didanashanta.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's message. Be sure to drop your email address so I can send you some helpful resources, updates, and the occasional music video that I may have on repeat. Make sure you subscribe and spread the love with someone you care about.